Hi everyone, welcome to another digital whiteboard session. Today we're going to look at my whiteboard and then switch over to Google Chrome to look at some practical examples that you see covered on this whiteboard today too. So a little bit interactive in some sense. Today we're talking about pitch deck templates. I want to give you an overview of the different options that you have. Now before we go and look at the different options that you have that can help you build your pitch decks, let's just think about why it matters, right? Startups need venture capital to survive. That's just the way it is. Fundraising is really hard. Only 1% of startups, roughly speaking, actually manage to raise capital from professional investors. And one of the key assets that you have along this journey is your pitch deck. There have been trends around alternatives, be that a data room and a pitch deck in Notion, or a Loom video to walk through your pitch. But ultimately, the number one asset that VCs are used to looking at and want to see is a short pitch deck that introduces your business and gives them the information that they're looking for in the format that they're used to. There is no benefit to reinventing the wheel. Build the best car you can and you'll win with that. Now, the challenge in building that car is that one, you're not building a pitch deck every day. You're doing this twice a year, maybe once a year, maybe once 18 months. Every 18 months, whatever it is, you're doing it occasionally, which means you don't have enough repetitions under your belt to really get excellent at it. And the second one is that you're only going to get limited feedback. You may have some friends and buddies that you could send your deck to, but they like you. They don't want to be harsh on your thesis and the case that you build. Investors are not incentivized to give you honest and direct feedback. So many times all you'll hear is, we're passing this time. Come back to us later if you have made more progress, or keep us in the loop. And that doesn't really help you to improve anything, including your pitch deck. And so you got to look for external sources and resources to improve what you're doing and get it right the first time, because you also only have so many shots on goal. You send your deck once, you can't send it twice to the same VC, at least not within the next 6 months. So what I'm listing here are essentially 3 verticals. The first one that I think are most helpful is guided templates. The second one are places where you can find lists with examples of past pitch decks from startups that also raised capital, like Airbnb. I think we all know that template. That's certainly also relevant. Obviously, pitch decks and what goes into them changes over time. It's different based on your region. You know, if you're in SF, you may have somewhat less in terms of stringency and requirements around how good your deck needs to be, because there is just much more venture funding out there. Whereas if you're in Europe or somewhere else, it may be a little bit different. And then there is a third category here that is design inspiration that we are not going to have a deep look at, but it's still relevant to cover quickly to be comprehensive in this overview. So let's start with guided templates. As you can see, there are, whatever this is, probably somewhere between 8 to 10 logos here, and each of these businesses or each of these resources has value as you're trying to figure out what to put into your pitch deck and maximize your odds of raising capital. The first one is Y Combinator. We will have a look at all of the resources in Google Chrome as well. But obviously YC, the biggest accelerator out there, they've put together a guide on what goes into a Series Seed pitch deck some time ago. I found that very useful when I raised my Series Seed, but the focus is on content. They also have design instructions. What this says is that while you will get some insights in terms of what to put into your, let's say, Series A pitch deck, it is really geared for the early stages of the business, which is where Y Combinator is looking for startups at that phase usually. So it makes sense that they would be focused on that phase. Sequoia Capital, the great thing here is this is a major VC, a tier 1 VC, so whatever they say is worth gold, and you should be paying attention to it. B2 Ventures is a Switzerland-based VC firm that's successful and has provided some instructions and some guidelines in I think what is either an Airtable or a Notion page. It's hard to say. Could be Confluence, whatever is able, wherever you're able to publish it online. You can find it via search engines. So I found that useful too. TechCrunch is obviously a major PR outlet when it comes to anything technology and startups. What they primarily focus on is tear downs, and they also have some high level, but very high level instructions in terms of what to put into your pitch deck. Zendog Labs, that's me. I've put together a pitch deck template based on my investor experience, based on reviewing, what we're talking about, 200 plus pitch decks over the last 12 months, and have given very specific content advice. What I've not done is, and we will have a look at that too, What I've not done is give specific design instructions, because I think design is distracting. You need to focus on the content, and then you can optimize the design, which, by the way, also explains why design inspiration is sort of the third category of stuff here that I don't think is that important. And then there is base templates. The owner of base templates, whatever you want to call it, is Max. Max is an angel. I know him through a shared customer of ours. And he is competent. He focuses a little bit more on design, where his design templates are very appreciated. They come with different options. There is some content instructions implied in how he structures his templates and what he puts on the slides, but it's not as focused on design. It's a little bit more, at least if you were to ask me, a little bit more focused on design. And so his templates and my template, for instance, kind of are pretty synergistic from that perspective. And Slidebean, as well as PandaDoc, give you high-level guides, so there is some use there, but then they're mostly focused on design. And, again, I think content matters much more. And where do you get content instructions? You get them from Y Combinator, though for a specific phase, and it's pretty high-level. Sequoia, it is also very high-level. B2 Ventures is a good start, also kind of high-level. TechCrunch is a little bit more detailed in what it's doing, and then Zendog Labs and base templates are definitely also helpful here. And Slidebean and PandaDoc I have mixed feelings about. So that's that in terms of a quick overview and some pros and cons. In terms of lists with examples, you have 4 primary players. I think the major ones are actually just 3. The first one is OpenVC. The second one is Failery, and the third one is PitchDeckHunt. PitchDeckHunt is again a company of Max. So Base Template and PitchDeckHunt are the same owner. He is a pretty prolific, business owner and entrepreneur. I appreciate his, and I have respect for how much he gets done. So he has a list of templates too. And then there is Visible VC that we'll also have a very quick look at. All right. So let me switch over to Google Chrome in order to get started with just a little bit more detail on the different options that you have. So what we're looking at here is the instructions in terms of the Series seed deck for YC or from YC. As you can see, the way it looks is very plain vanilla or very basic, I should say, in terms of what you should put where. You start with the problem, you give the solution, you say that you have traction, and so on and so forth. And I found this very useful when I was getting started, at least like as an initial, point to look at that's reputable and that you can probably trust. Now, obviously, this has been published, I think, he's saying it up here, around 2018. So we're looking at something that's 5 years old. In the meantime, this year is 2023. Probably lots of things changed, and it's worth to look at some stuff that may be a little bit more up to date. But the fundamentals stay the same. Now, this is a second post from YC that talks about design. You can actually find this. I only found this recently. It is linked at the bottom of this page here. He says that Kevin wrote how to design decks well, so you can click through to here and you'll find this post. And without going too much into detail, the key point from a design perspective is just make it is what is up here, right? Make it simple. Like, don't clutter your slides too much. That's a common mistake that I'm seeing. Target for something around 40 to 60 at most words per slide, so that VCs that only have 3 to 5 minutes to review your deck and decide whether they want to meet with you can do that quickly without feeling overwhelmed. You have more time on the actual call, but remember, it is a very short period of time that you're getting, and you want to get the key points across in that period of time. So that's where the teaser deck needs to be very short. So that's that. Sequoia, and that's why you're seeing, while Sequoia is obviously a massive brand, you're seeing why it's high level. This is all you get. It gives you the structure. It says you start with company purpose, then problem, solution, why now, market potential, competition, business model, team, financials, vision. I'm not sure I would necessarily put the vision at the back of the deck. I think it is too important to tell somewhere between problem and solution what your actual vision is, because that is the glue between those two, and it gives a perspective on what the inspirational thing is that you're going after. But other than that, obviously hard to argue with Sequoia. I think they're based this mostly on what they say up here, what Airbnb did back then. So I suspect this may have been the Airbnb pitch deck structure. And in some of the lists of examples that I have up here that we will go over once we are done with the rest here, you will find Airbnb as one example to go through. So that's Sequoia. In terms of B2 Ventures, when you start on their overview page, you click through to fundraising, you click through to fundraising pitch deck, and then you have a couple of pointers here in terms of what to put into there. Again, it has sort of a similar high-level overview of what should go into here, along the lines of what Sequoia also had, and slightly different. For instance, you don't see the vision slide at the end. Obviously, everyone has different perspectives on what the perfect structure is. Just make sure it's coherent and consistent. And so this is B2 Ventures. In terms of TechCrunch, what you have here is a couple of instructions. What I find mostly useful is one, how they're breaking down the slides here. So that's another one that you can look at. Probably a little bit too detailed, like an operating plan. I'm not sure I need that. Personally, I also don't think most startups need a why now slide. The downside is that you, I think, need a subscription to TechCrunch Plus here, which is going to cost you money in order to access all of these resources. But overall, some helpful information. And I find the pitch deck teardowns particularly interesting. Especially it was useful for me as I was putting together my template so that I get a third-party perspective on what I'm saying and whether I'm actually going into the right direction. And I think these are freely accessible since it doesn't say TC Plus here. So have a look at this. Probably some good stuff in here, which brings in someone's expertise in order to tear those down rather than just give you a list. Alrighty, so now then there is me, Zendog Labs. I'm the founder and CEO of Zendog Labs. I was a principal at a principal investment firm called Roivant before, out of New York. We raised about $3 billion from SoftBank Vision Fund, Founders Fund, then went public on the NASDAQ. And we had a portfolio of about 35 companies at one point. And obviously saw investing activity there and led stuff. And after that, I was also the VC in residence at Fundin, which is an investor matchmaking platform, and I've seen tons of deal flow going through that too. And then before that, have started 2 startups myself, one in e-commerce and the other one in digital health. So I have some track record to look at when I put together this template. And essentially, as you can see here on the right, and you can download your free sample before buying it, or access more FAQ resources here, it's really focused on content. I've kept it intentionally low fidelity, similar to what Sequoia has done, but given much more instructions in terms of what goes into each individual slide and why that matters. And so download your free sample, make an impression yourself, or get an impression yourself. And if you do have questions about the template, reach out to me. What really matters for me, again, is content, structure, and the setup of the slides. Cool. So that's that for Zendog Labs. In terms of base templates, again, Max, I mentioned this, the way he has this freely accessible demo, which I appreciate. As you can see, you can click through like different options for each individual slide. I think that's cool. By what he has on the left here, he is also to some degree implying what the structure should be, though he's not prescriptive about it. The way, for instance, I would be. He is giving you instructions or pointers rather than explicit instructions on what goes where onto the slides or could go where onto the slides. And so this is definitely a resource you also want to be referencing to. He's done a pretty cool job, even just from the technical implementation perspective. Setting up this web application is, at least took him some time, whereas I took some shortcuts there. But fundamentally, you're still going to get very valuable stuff. Okay, then it's that Slidebean, as mentioned, is a quick guide on what goes where, but mostly focused on design. I think they have the quick guide down here in terms of how to set up the different slides and some general best practices, and then you can click through these different slides and see what would go onto them. I would never start my deck with traction just because the problem that you're solving matters more, and most startups don't have that much traction to lead with that. Similar comment about team. I wouldn't put the team slide first because usually it's not really the team that matters. What's much more important is the traction. Unless you are sort of a unicorn founder or have like a notable exit before, then you can prioritize the team side for sure, but otherwise you don't want to have it at the very beginning. Anyways, without getting distracted by specific instructions here, let's go back to our comparison or our overview here. And you can go through the different slides. Again, it's very heavily focused on design, in my opinion. It won't tell you what exactly to put where, and I would definitely not have the product at the end of your deck. That would be crazy. But other than that, there may be some value you can get out of Slidebean. And then there is PandaDoc, similar to Slidebean, very much focused on design. And I'm not sure I would set up my VC pitch deck just exactly like this. You definitely don't need a table of contents. Some of the stuff, I haven't read through this in detail, but I just noticed that there are some guidelines here too that you may want to or could have a look at that may be helpful for you. And again, what I do like is that it starts with problem and then go into the solution and give a little bit of detail on what the solution is. So that's great. All right, so these are the primary resources I see in terms of guided pitch deck templates that can get you from zero to somewhere. And then in terms of design or inspiration from prior pitch decks, OpenVC, I mentioned this, you will see sort of the startup name here and the series here. And then I'm suspecting, I haven't actually tried this, you can open up the slides here, and yeah, this is focused on specific individual slides. So this is a pricing slide. This is definitely not how much detail should be going on pricing into your slide deck. That would be an overkill. But generally, you may be able to get some instructions in terms of how to set up specific slides, like the competitor slide here, by whichever company this was. Alrighty, so that's OpenVC, which is also like an interesting place to go to for some other stuff. I think they have a list of investors that you can reach out to. And then there is Failery. Failery has a similar thing going on here where they have a little bit of a web application that you can filter through. Let's assume you're in SaaS. Let's assume you're in B2B SaaS. And let's assume you're raising a Series A. Then you can have a look at Cloudera, for instance, and it will have the linked, oh my god, this looks horrible. You will have the linked deck. Now, while I say that content matters most, do not underappreciate the importance of design, right? You want to be presenting something that looks visually appealing, and this does not. Most investors are former strategy consultants or investment bankers. They have spent years of their life making slides pretty. That's the primary job of an investment banker or a strategy consultant. And so I'm being sarcastic and a little pushy here, but fundamentally that's an important part of your job. And so they do like to see, cool slides, and this doesn't look cool. It just doesn't. But again, hey, you get a pretty tangible example that raised capital. I mean, you can't comment about that, and it's probably a little bit old. That's the point. But Failery, extremely cool resource there. PitchDeckHunt, I mentioned this. This is the same company as Base Templates here. Max is the owner of both, and he has done something similar to Failery and OpenVC. Probably they're copy-pasting and copying a little bit from each other. Maybe even I don't know. Maybe they're stealing some information from each other. It's just a comprehensive list of startups. It's what's called programmatic SEO. You list all of this stuff and in a templatized way, and then people searching on their website find it on Google search find it pretty easily. And that's the fundamental reason why they're doing it. But hey, it's super helpful. You can filter through a couple of things here too. For instance, you could go after Series B, and you can have a look at the Wunderlist to-do list. Very sad that Microsoft acquired Wunderlist. It was a great application until it was acquired by Microsoft. They completely screwed it up. And then there is Visible VC. I think you have some general instructions here in terms of guidelines on top that could be useful. And then when you scroll down, what you have is a couple of pitch deck examples. Again, in this case, okay, I don't think I'm able to click through this. That's interesting. In this case, that was front. You have a few others. Maybe the goal here is to just give an example of specific slides. But hey, from here, you could start your journey of finding, for instance, Uber's original pitch deck. I'm sure that wouldn't be hard. You could also just use OpenVC, Failery, or PitchDeckHunt for it. That completes our overview of the different options that you have to go with when it comes to pitch deck templates. I think what's most useful for you is a mix of guided templates and the lists of examples. If you have any questions about this stuff, drop them into the comments. Happy to get back to you. I am also getting excited about any likes. So if you leave a thumbs up, please do so. It would mean the world to me. And if you like to get more of this type of content, go over to my channel and hit the subscribe button. It also means a lot to me as a content creator. Have a great day. Talk to you soon, and bye-bye.